In the tapestry of 1879, a spirited 16-year-old embarked on a journey from his father's farm, destined for the bustling city of Detroit. A time when locomotion was confined to the rhythmic beats of trains or the elegant clip-clop of horse carriages. Meanwhile, the nascent notion of automobiles was but a distant dream, reserved as playthings for the affluent elite who reveled in the thrill of racing. Little did the world anticipate the unfolding saga of this young visionary who would go on to orchestrate a paradigm shift in the automotive narrative. Imagine a Detroit of yesteryear, where he, against all odds, laid the cornerstone of a car company that would wield transformative power over the automobile industry, sculpting it into the dynamic landscape we recognize today. Let's keep the good vibes going. Which successful business owners or crazy new ideas do you think we should cover next? Tell us in the comments. Now, catapult yourself 35 years into the future from that fateful arrival in Detroit. Astonishingly, nearly half of all vehicles traversing the globe proudly bore the name of this trailblazer. The name? None other than Henry Ford, a luminary whose entrepreneurial brilliance not only etched an indelible mark on the annals of automotive history, but also catapulted him to the echelons of the wealthiest individuals in American lore. In the riveting tapestry of Henry Ford's life, we find a story that transcends time, a testament to unwavering vision, unbridled innovation, and the profound impact of one man on an entire industry. Join us as we unravel the threads of a legacy that continues to drive the wheels of progress and inspiration to this very day. At the heart of our story is Henry Ford's unique journey. Imagine the year 1863 on a farm in Dearborn, Michigan. A remarkable individual, Henry Ford, was born into a family where farming was not just a way of life, but an expectation. As the eldest of 6 siblings, Henry was supposed to follow in his father, William Ford's footsteps and take over the family farm. However, here's where things take a turn. Unlike his father, Henry wasn't interested in farming. In those days, farming was tough lots of hard work, slow progress, and a great deal of effort. Despite Henry doing his best to help on the farm, he couldn't shake the feeling that farming just wasn't for him. Imagine this, a clash between tradition and a young man's dreams. Even though Henry tried to contribute to the family farm, he didn't find joy in the repetitive and demanding farm life. The soil and sweat weren't his preferred canvas, the fields weren't his chosen stage. As the gap widened between father and son, a clear truth emerged. Henry Ford, with a heart yearning for something more, found himself at the crossroads of old traditions and new possibilities. The farm held no special place in his heart. It was his mother's presence that made it meaningful. Henry Ford, much like other kids of his time, didn't find joy in going to school and didn't advance beyond the 8th grade. His preference was to learn things on his own terms. From a young age, he developed a keen interest in mechanics. This fascination with machines drove him to study every piece of machinery that crossed his path. When he turned 12, his father gifted him a pocket watch. As he tinkered with its intricate movements, Henry not only mastered the art of disassembling and reassembling it within minutes, but extended his expertise to the watches of his friends and relatives. As his reputation as a watch repairman flourished, Henry Ford found himself delving deeper into the intricate world of mechanics. The pivotal moment arrived at the age of 13 during a school excursion to a Detroit company, where he laid eyes on a steam engine for the first time. What began as a passing interest swiftly transformed into an all-consuming passion, evolving into a compelling hobby that would shape his future. By the tender age of 15, Henry had already accomplished a remarkable feat. He had successfully constructed his very own steam engine. Yet amid the triumph of his mechanical pursuits, tragedy struck. The sudden loss of his mother, Mary Ford, to illness cast a shadow over his world. The profound connection he shared with her, particularly on the farm, intensified his grief. The farm, once a place of familial ties, now held too many memories of a cherished loved one. Driven by a yearning for a fresh start and fueled by the pain of loss, Henry's discontent with farm life reached a boiling point. At the age of 16, against the wishes of his father, he made a daring decision. Packing his belongings, he left the familiar village behind, venturing into the promising unknown of Detroit. A city in the throes of industrial revolution, fueled by the relentless power of steam engines. Detroit beckoned as a realm of endless possibilities and untapped potential. The stage was set for Henry Ford to weave his destiny amidst the hum of industry and the promise of innovation. In the bustling city of Detroit, hungry for the skills of young engineers, Henry Ford set out on a mission to reinvent himself, landing a job at the Michigan Car Company Works, a major streetcar manufacturing company. Henry's initial excitement was cut short. He was let go after just 6 days. Undeterred, he found a new opportunity as an apprentice at the James Flower & Brothers machine shop, earning a meager $2.60 per week. Yet, even with a full schedule, Henry's determination didn't waver. To make ends meet, he took on a night job as a jeweler, spending 6 hours a night, 6 days a week, cleaning and repairing watches for $3 weekly. Despite juggling multiple roles, Henry stayed true to his passion for machines, studying and experimenting whenever he could. In 1882, at the age of 19, Henry made a crucial decision to return to his roots in Michigan. Despite his lingering disdain for farming, he dedicated minimal time to farm work, using most of his hours to play and tinker with the machinery scattered around the farm. This period marked a turning point as Henry Ford, armed with a wealth of industrial experiences, laid the foundation for the transformative chapters that awaited him. Fortunately, Henry's father had invested in a portable steam engine, a revolutionary device quickly gaining popularity among farmers. Henry, drawn to the machine like a magnet, honed his skills to such a degree that a neighbor on his father's farm paid him $3 to operate their steam engine. News of Ford's mechanical prowess spread like wildfire across Michigan. His reputation reached the ears of the district representative of the Westinghouse Engine Company in Schenectady, New York. Impressed by Henry's talent, the company hired him. His role involved traveling throughout southern Michigan, setting up and servicing Westinghouse steam tractor engines. In 1885, Henry's life took another turn when he met Clara Jane Bryant at a New Year's Eve party. The following year, they became engaged. As a wedding gift, Henry's father bestowed upon him 40 acres of land. However, rather than converting it into farmland, Henry had different plans. In 1891, Henry and Clara relocated to a small apartment in Detroit. It was around this time that Henry stumbled upon a British magazine discovering the wonders of the gas engine. Intrigued and inspired, Henry Ford's journey into the realm of internal combustion and a new chapter in automotive history was about to unfold. Now enters the gas engine, a cool invention crafted by a German engineer named Nicholas Otto. This thing was way cooler than steam engines, super efficient, and, gets this, no more waiting around for 30 minutes to start up. It kicked off combustion on its own. While it was the rave in Europe, not many folks in America knew about it. Lucky for Henry, he found someone in the city who owned one. Henry was instantly smitten with the gas engine, but there was a hitch. He had no clue how it worked, especially with that electric spark powering it up. Determined to crack the code, Henry applied for a job as a night engineer at the Edison Illuminating Company, pulling in a sweet $40 a month. This company was the big shot in Detroit, lighting up 1,000 homes with electricity from a steam engine. Henry was basically the perfect fit. By day, he fixed the engine when it hiccuped. But when things were running smoothly, he spent every spare minute figuring out the gas engine's secrets. This was the start of something big for Henry Ford, diving deep into the world of combustion engines and electric sparks. The stage was set for some serious innovation. With not much else on his plate, Henry found himself with ample time to dive deep into the world of electricity. In 1893, amidst this self-guided learning journey, Henry and Clara celebrated the arrival of their first and only child, Edsel Bryant Ford. Just 3 months after Edsel's birth, a significant turning point in Henry's career unfolded. He was promoted to the role of chief engineer, earning a handsome salary of $100 per week. In this same year, Henry achieved a milestone that laid the foundation for his dream of creating a horseless carriage. He successfully crafted his first operational gas engine, marking the initial step toward automotive innovation. However, it wasn't until the early hours of June 4th, 1896, precisely at 1:30 a.m., that he completed his experimental car. Powered by the gas engine he named the quadricycle. The quadricycle, a somewhat primitive creation, consisted of 2 bicycles placed side by side and was propelled by a gasoline engine. While the experiment proved successful, it came with its share of quirks. The experimental car had 2 gears, neither for reverse nor forward movement. However, the most significant hiccup was the absence of a cooling system, making the car prone to overheating after running for a while. The quadricycle, though imperfect, marked the dawn of Henry Ford's journey into the realm of automobiles. Henry, committed to perfecting his creation, made numerous adjustments to the car, with the most significant being the addition of a cooling system. Once refined, he sold the vehicle for $200, using the proceeds to fund another ambitious project. With the backing of the Detroit mayor, Henry commenced the construction of his second experimental car, and successfully completed it by July 1899. This new car stood larger, sturdier, and heavier than its predecessor. Eager to showcase his creation, Henry took William Murphy, a prosperous lumber merchant, for a test drive. The experience left Murphy so impressed that he expressed a desire to join Henry's business venture. They sealed the deal with a handshake, giving birth to the Detroit Automobile Company on August 5, 1899. Regrettably, the company's journey was short-lived, facing challenges that led to its demise within a year. Misalignment of ideas was a key issue. Henry envisioned improvements to the car, while stakeholders pressed for the production of passenger cars. Additionally, the dependence on various companies for parts proved detrimental. Delays in deliveries meant the entire factory had to halt production, significantly slowing down the manufacturing process. The promising venture succumbed to a combination of factors, paving the way for Henry Ford's resilience and eventual triumphs in the automotive industry. By a considerable stretch of time, his first car, dubbed the delivery wagon, took 6 months to produce, and only 20 of them were manufactured during the company's initial 2-year existence. As a consequence of these challenges, Henry found himself dismissed from his position. Despite the setback of his first company's failure, Henry remained optimistic, adopting a perspective that failure was merely an opportunity to start anew, this time with more intelligence. Surprisingly, Henry felt a sense of relief upon losing his job, as it lifted the pressure and allowed him to refocus his efforts. With a renewed sense of purpose, Henry set his sights on a new endeavor: racing cars. The rationale was straightforward. Racing cars had become a wildly popular sport in the United States, offering Henry a platform to showcase his cars and their quality. Additionally, given the fallout from the Detroit Automobile Company, despite having connections with influential people in the city, Henry realized securing investments for his ideas might prove challenging. Nevertheless, undeterred, he forged ahead, turning his attention to the exhilarating world of racing as a means to propel his automotive ambitions forward. A year later, Ford's newly designed racing car achieved a notable victory, triumphing over the vehicle of Cleveland automaker Alexander Winton and the nation's leading national racing driver from Grosse Pointe. Henry's powerful 26-horsepower vehicle became the talk of the town, capturing the public's imagination and instilling confidence in investors. This surge in popularity paved the way for the establishment of the Ford Motor Company, with Henry at the helm as the chief engineer. However, the tranquility of Henry's position was short-lived. His continued focus on making race cars, instead of the passenger cars his investors desired, stirred discontent. Seeking someone to fulfill their vision, the investors brought in another Henry Martin Leland. Ford, irked by this move, found it hard to accept someone else taking the reins of his creation. In frustration, he left the company, declaring in his autobiography, "I resigned, determined never again to put myself under orders." In contrast, Henry Leland aligned with the investors' wishes and went on to create what we now know as the Cadillac, marking a significant divergence in the paths of the two automotive pioneers. With Henry Ford's departure, the company underwent a significant transformation from the Ford Motor Company to the Cadillac Motor Company. Undeterred, Henry Ford, joined by former racing cyclist Tom Cooper, continued their pursuit of building racing cars. In 1902, they produced the Ford 999, an impressive 80-horsepower car driven by Barney Oldfield, a former bicycle racer with no prior experience in automobiles. Surpassing Winton's car, the Ford 999, by 1904, broke all American records, reaching a top speed of 91.4 miles per hour. These groundbreaking records and victories solidified Henry's standing as the premier American designer for racing cars. Armed with this reputation, he knew he could secure backing from investors whenever he was ready to embark on his third venture. With support and financial backing from 11 investors, including Detroit coal dealer Alexander Young Malcolmson, Henry's third company came to life. Initially named Ford and Malcolmson Limited, the company underwent a change to the Ford Motor Company in 1902. Determined not to repeat the failures of his first two attempts, Henry Ford forged ahead with renewed determination and resilience. Henry Ford shifted his focus to creating a vehicle that could be afforded by the common man. During that era, owning a car was a luxury reserved for the wealthy, mainly because vehicles were crafted by highly skilled engineers, and many were designed exclusively for racing. As he began his new venture, Henry made a bold statement to his associates and investors. "I will build a motor car for the great multitude, constructed of the best materials by the best men to be hired, after the simplest designs that modern engineering can devise, suitable in price that no man making a good salary will be unable to own one." Henry Ford had a talent for identifying and attracting the brightest talents in the industry. He brought on board numerous impressive young individuals who shared and believed in his vision. As for the design of the car, Henry went through more than 20 iterations before finally creating one that worked, the Model A. Over the next 5 years, Henry tirelessly worked on improving the Model A, which was succeeded by the Model N, marking the beginning of Ford's commitment to producing affordable and accessible automobiles for the general public. His relentless pursuit of simplicity, efficiency, and affordability would soon revolutionize the automotive industry. In those 5 years, Henry Ford didn't just tinker with car designs, he revolutionized how they were made. Learning from past failures, he realized the key was having one manufacturer supply most of the car parts. So he found a machine shop in Detroit to do just that. But the real game changer happened during a trip to Chicago. While checking out a slaughterhouse, Henry saw the assembly line concept in action. It hit him like a bolt of lightning. What if he applied the same idea to building cars? That's when the light bulb went off. With an assembly line, he could make more cars in a day. This ingenious idea would go on to transform not just Ford's production, but the entire automotive industry. The assembly line was about to change everything. Back then, car manufacturers like Ford assembled one car at a time, and the production process was slow. In 1904, Henry Ford decided to change the game. he raised more money and built his very own factory, where he employed over 300 workers. Inside this new facility, he began experimenting with the assembly line, a concept that would redefine the way cars were made. It wasn't until 1906 that the assembly line was fully integrated into the production of the Model N. Even then, it was a work in progress. Nonetheless, the assembly line boosted production by a staggering 5 times, turning Ford's new model into the best-selling car in the United States. Yet, Henry had grander ambitions. In 1905, he established his own manufacturing company to produce engines, transmissions, and everything else necessary for car production. Around the same time, Henry stumbled upon a groundbreaking discovery: vanadium steel. This discovery marked a new era for the automobile industry. Vanadium steel was 3 times stronger and much lighter than previous steel. Henry seized this innovation, using vanadium steel in his new model, which would go on to become one of the most successful cars in human history. The automotive landscape was on the brink of a revolution. The Model T, a business absolutely devoted to service, will have only one worry about profits: they will be embarrassingly large. This was Henry Ford's vision, a dream of making automobiles accessible for the common man, for everyday use. The Model T was the realization of that dream. Initially released as one of the most expensive cars Ford had ever made, priced at $850, equivalent to around $21,000 today, it swiftly became a favorite in the US. In a matter of days after its release, 15,000 orders flooded in, propelling the Ford Motor Company to the top spot in America. Henry Ford had achieved what many thought impossible. However, he wanted more. Realizing the need for a larger factory to meet the demand of producing over 100 Model Ts a day, he built a new plant in Highland Park, Michigan in 1910. After several experiments and innovations, the assembly line was officially up and running by 1913. This revolutionary concept allowed the work to come to the workers, rather than the workers moving around the vehicle. Henry Ford had not only transformed the automotive industry with the Model T, but had pioneered a new era in manufacturing with the assembly line, a game changer that would shape industries far beyond the realm of automobiles. The Model T was like a superstar rolling down the assembly line, getting pieced together step by step. This smart move cut production time from a whopping 12 hours to just 90 minutes. By 1914, Ford was pumping out over 300,000 cars, more than all the other car makers combined. Between 1910 and 1916, the number of Model Ts went through the roof, jumping from 20,000 to nearly 1 million. Wrap your head around this: half of all the cars on the planet were Fords. But Henry Ford wasn't finished. Nope, he had another ace up his sleeve. Every year, as they cranked out more Model Ts, Henry dropped the price. In 1916, a car that used to cost $850 was now going for less than $400. Talk about a deal. But here's the kicker: some workers weren't thrilled with the assembly line, doing the same thing over and over. Not everyone's cup of tea. Henry, being the sharp guy he was, had a trick for that too. Things weren't all rosy with the assembly line. Some skilled craftsmen found their new roles less satisfying, doing just 2 tasks instead of crafting a whole car. Workers started leaving Ford for other gigs. To tackle this, Henry Ford pulled a move that left many scratching their heads. He doubled the workers' wage, setting it at $5 a day. Many thought Ford was crazy, predicting it would bankrupt the company. But guess what? It did the opposite. Mechanics from all over the country flocked to Detroit for those higher wages. Ford's philosophy was clear: we believe in making 25,000 men prosperous and contented, rather than following the plan of making a few slave drivers in our multi-millionaire establishments. And that's not all. Henry not only boosted wages, but also cut the working hours, giving the mechanics an extra hour off. This shift change allowed Ford to hire a whole new set of workers for a third shift, making it a 24-hour operation. Other car businesses had to follow suit to keep their workers from jumping ship to Ford. Henry Ford had just reshaped the business and manufacturing landscape across the USA. One golden rule for industrialists: produce top-notch goods at the lowest cost while paying the highest wages possible. In 1919, Henry Ford, weary of interference from other investors, decided to buy them all out. This move turned several folks in Detroit into millionaires, but also made Henry Ford the sole owner of the world's largest automobile company. Later on, Henry appointed his 26-year-old son, Edsel Ford, as the president of the company. But let's be real, Henry was the real maestro behind the scenes. However, having absolute power over the company came with its challenges that even the richest man in America couldn't overlook. Henry stuck to his guns, steadfastly believing that the Model T was the car people truly wanted. Ignoring the rising popularity of more stylish and comfortable cars like Chevrolet, he remained stubborn and unyielding. He brushed off suggestions from other Ford executives, and even his own son Edsel, who advocated for a new model. By the late 1920s, tensions were building. Henry Ford could no longer turn a blind eye to the dropping sales figures. Finally, he made the call to shut down the Model T assembly line and set his sights on designing a brand new car. The result? The new Model A, released in 1927. However, there was a notable change. This car wasn't produced at Highland Park anymore. Instead, a larger factory along the Rogue River in Michigan became the new hub of production. In this colossal new factory, Henry had a grand vision. He wanted to encompass all the steps in the manufacturing process, from refining raw materials to the final assembly of the automobile. And he pulled it off. This facility became the world's largest, cranking out not just cars, but also manufacturing steel, glass, tires, and every other component needed to build those automobiles. It was a game changer in the world of manufacturing. However, Ford's sole control over decision-making was no longer a winning strategy. By 1936, Ford Motor Company had slipped to third place in the U.S. market, trailing behind General Motors and the Chrysler Corporation. Despite Henry's innovative V8 engine design, the company faced more challenges, especially with the onset of the Great Depression. Ford had to make tough decisions, including laying off workers and lowering rates. In 1943, tragedy struck as Henry's son passed away from stomach cancer. Henry continued to steer the company for 2 more years before handing over control to his grandson, Henry II. Retiring to his estate, Henry Ford later succumbed to a cerebral hemorrhage on April 7, 1947. Reflecting on life's experiences, he noted, "Life is a series of experiences, each one of which makes us bigger, even though sometimes it is hard to realize this." Today, Ford Motor Company boasts a market cap of around $47 billion, standing tall as one of the largest car companies globally. Thanks for joining us on this epic rise. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's story. What did you find most inspiring? Let us know in the comments below.